Welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon and I'm the host of A Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. And welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Sharon. And here we are again for another podcast series after a long break. Sharon, can you introduce us to our exciting 2026 series focusing on the art and craft of teaching writing?
Absolutely. So since 2020, when we first started podcasting, we've actually created a number of podcasts on writing. But this year, we want to be dedicating a series of podcasts to what underpins effective writing instruction and how this can play out for every child in every classroom. To bring this alive, we will be joined by two classroom teachers who have worked incredibly hard to explore and develop the qualities of effective writing instruction from everyday practice and routines, intentional planning, noticings and learning.
So today, Sharon, we bring our listeners the first in a series titled The 5 Pillars of Effective Writing Instruction. This is developed from work with two great teachers, Year 5-6 teachers at Fairview Primary School in Collie, Western Australia, over the last few years. We have had visits as consultants there and lots of Zoom meetings over that time, developing their practices in literacy, teaching and learning.
So whilst we've been working with all staff there is the work of two teachers, Danielle, Monique and Ludlum, and that is what we're going to be focusing on in this series. Dee and Danielle have been rigorous in their professional learning and in their pursuit of writing motivation and success for every child. Through this podcast series, you'll hear directly from them what they have learned and discovered through their 5 pillars of effective writing instruction. Incredibly, you'll also have access to planning, outlines, collections of writing samples, photos from their classroom, and interviews with students talking about their writing. What they have developed over the past 5 years is a huge body of work, and we could not be more thrilled to bring their work and the teachers themselves to you.
So let's dive right in and introduce you to our series guests and get them to share a bit about themselves and how the work developed. Welcome, Dee and Danielle.
Thank you. Thanks. Dee's got all shy.
Yes, I know. Volume up.
No. Yeah, I come from a high school background, so I'm a high school drama and English teacher. And it was, 5 years ago that Andrew threw Dee and I together so that Dee could teach sport 1 day a week and I came into the classroom. And I guess from then on, we've just really stuck together and done everything we possibly could for our kids to make sure that they get the best of us and the best of themselves through their learning.
So you've really been team teaching for 5 years?
Yeah.
Did you know each other before?
Yeah, we did. Right. Probably not as well as we do now, but yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yes. What's that been like, Dee?
It's been a journey. I've taught Year 6 for a long time, but did a lot of time in phys ed, and my journey out of phys ed into a full-time classroom. Working with Danielle has been great. I've learnt a lot along the way, especially with writing. Our journey watching the change in our kids from the change in our knowledge and the journey that we've taken with writing.
You've been very open to trying things out, but you've always had at the forefront of your minds, what is it that is going to enable every child to feel successful as a writer? And that probably really stemmed from, so where did the writing in particular, do you think, where did that really stem from, your desire to make a difference to the writing?
Well, I guess we both really have high standards about what we expected of the kids, and we've always thought that it didn't matter their ability level. Every student could produce something, whether that was, a War and Peace, or whether it was a fast fiction. Every child is dealt with in the same way, and there's that expectation across it. And I guess too, we saw some of the stuff that kids were producing in their writing, and neither one of us particularly liked it. It wasn't kind of the standard that we thought that they should be, so we took it from there.
I guess it kind of come from a point where we noticed the kids really didn't understand the purpose of writing. It was just, I wrote a story because I was told to write a story. So putting that purpose in the background and giving them a reason to write, and letting them again all know that they can all be successful. It's not that some can't.
So over the past 5 years, there's been so much that you've developed around writing, starting, and actually I want to also say that your writing has never been developed in isolation of reading. That's been something that's been a really big hallmark of the work that you've been doing. But after 5 years, we really sat down to get you to try and synthesize, pull out what were the main pillars, what were the things that were the effective pillars of instruction, of writing instruction, as you had lived it and seen and developed and had found success in it. So over the 5 episodes, we're really going to focus in on the 5 pillars, one for each of the episodes. So we're going to start with the first of the pillars, and that one begins with, the first pillar is about purposeful planning. But I am going to ask you, before I get you to talk about it, was there an intentional order to your 5 pillars?
Not particularly. I guess we started with planning because that's where we always start. We start with the end task and go from there. Other than that, no. They kind of all work intermingled.
Yeah, it just flowed on, didn't it? When we were thinking of them, we went, okay, well, what do we plan? What do we plan for? We want our quality writing, then we want them to be independent, going through to the masterclasses, and then looking at everything as a whole in the writing cycle.
Yeah, and that's really how your pillars are structured. And so I think it's so powerful that it is about the intentional planning, which is where you begin, or purposeful planning, as you call it. So you've really written each of the pillars, each of the 5 pillars, in a particular way, really defining the pillar and then talking about what that looks like in the classroom. So could we start with purposeful planning, and what do you say about that?
Do you want to do that?
Sure.
Don't say sure. Well, we've written that we use front-end loading and backwards planning to make learning clear, consistent and predictable for students. Expectations, success criteria and vocabulary are introduced early and reinforced in writing, reading, word work and classroom displays, so students constantly see, hear and use the language of learning. Then we've got what supports that within our classroom. So we have our word wall, our phrases we love, any of the anchor charts and displays that we have in our rooms, and then we create unit overviews with learning intentions.
Fabulous. And so that very structure that you've just talked about is what we'll hear in each of the podcasts for each of the 5 pillars. So the definition of it, and then how it's really about the tools and resources and scaffolds that then exist in the classroom to enable that purposeful planning to be in use by students. So it's a really powerful way that you've structured that. So let's start diving into the purposeful planning. And can you tell me a little bit, or tell all the listeners how you go about, so you always plan together. Dee, you're 4 days a week?
Yes.
And Danielle in the classroom 1 day a week?
Yes, yeah.
But you're both engaged in or contribute to the purposeful planning for literacy, or is it for writing?
Literacy.
Yes, for literacy.
Yeah.
Our plans cover, reading and writing.
Yeah. So how do you find having a planning partner?
It's great.
Yeah.
Someone
Without
to
doubt.
bounce ideas off of and, get that clarity in your own head of what you're trying to put out there.
What do you want to say, Danielle? It's
I was going to say, it's great having someone to plan with because, as Dee said, you do bounce ideas off of each other, and something that I think is great, Dee might not think is particularly good, and it's that foil for the other person, because I've got a strength in literacy and writing, so I think something is simple, but Dee won't see it that way, so it helps me see it how someone who's not skilled in an area might see it. Not saying that Dee's not skilled, she is. But my interest is in writing, so I tend to look at it in probably a far more complex way than lots of people do.
Yeah, with a secondary background that you bring to it.
Yes, yeah.
And also, it's a good balance, isn't it, then, for students in the classroom, that you're actually covering all angles for all children then about, what will come easily to some, what kinds of scaffolding may be needed then for less, I'm going to say less confident children. Not that I think there's any children that come out of your classrooms as not being confident writers. That's a real hallmark of the work that you do, is children find great success in themselves as writers through what you do with them. So let's get down to a little bit of a story. Talk us through, actually, before I ask that, I do want to say, what do you think, you've really sort of described what you enjoy about co-planning, but as a planning process, what do you think might be like teacher struggles, teacher pain points around planning that through the work that you've done and the work that you're going to share with us, that you think you've overcome some of those struggles and pain points in the way that you plan?
I think the ability to be breaking down and know what you need to do step by step along the way. So we start with our end goal, what do we want them to achieve? And then we go back and break it down into each learning intention, looking at our curriculum, what is it that at that year level that they need to achieve for that, and how are we going to deliver that along the way?
Okay, so you really start with each child in mind, about what it is that they are, so when you talk about, that initial planning, what it is that you want as the end, with the end in mind and how we're going to get there. So curriculum, you're really drawing on curriculum, but you're also drawing on student, what you've noticed about students and what they need.
Yeah, I think when we know who we're getting the following year, our stuff is data-based, so we'll get in and have a look at where kids are sitting in the previous year and where we can push them and start thinking about how do we actually push them to get to the next level.
Yeah. Across a number of areas, actually. It's really about, because one of the big things that you target is motivating children. So really seeing who are the motivated, as they come to you, who are the motivated ones, who aren't.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that you build into the planning, is that motivation. And I think you mentioned earlier about, purpose and, what's the purpose for doing this? Right. So I think that is the struggle, is bringing those things together, for a teacher. It's all of that, where do you start, and having a clear where you want to go, is your notion of that backward planning, where you want to go, how we're going to bring that back, from there. So that's what we would say, would be like the struggle behind it. So you plan in 5-week blocks.
Yeah, we plan it, 5 or 6 week blocks. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what what the structure of your planning looks like.
Well, once we've decided exactly what it is that we want to get out of it, for example, currently we're sitting on doing narratives. We knew we wanted the kids to write a story. We went back to looking at what, as Dee said, what does each step take? So we break it down into what's the first thing that we need to do? What does that lead on to? Where do we think that there are going to be bottlenecks where kids are not going to be able to have that success, and we may need to teach to their need? And we plan it out. We literally sit down and plan out day by day what's going to happen. And if I tell you that we plan within an inch of our lives, I'm not fibbing. We do. And
doesn't mean we're not flexible.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's why we have the flexibility that we have, because we plan so intensively and we know exactly where we need to go and how we need to get the kids there, that if something goes awry, we can toss that lesson out the window and head in a slightly different direction to get where we need to go.
Yes, because you've always got that focus of where you're going, and that is always modified by student response, whether they don't need it or whether they need, another angle on that or more of that or right. So now talk a little bit about, you really kind of draw up your 5 or 6 weeks as a grid for your planning. Yes. So now we're getting into comfort zone. Right, I've asked all the big, all the theory type questions.
And Dee can talk to the grid because that works with her ADHD brain and having things structured and ordered, and also copes to my non-diagnosed OCD.
Yes, so
I think too with our planning as well, that the front end loading helps us. Those 2 weeks prior to the unit starting gives us a bit of a insight into what they're going to come in with, and we've got that bit of time to change the plan if need be.
Yes, because you're always each plan isn't sitting in isolation of what's come before. It's really using everything that's come before to say, and sometimes, as you say, front end loading some of what you want to introduce in that next unit, you bring into that end of the unit before, or weave it in some ways where you're actually getting an incredible flow through the year, cycling through things, we'll talk, specifically about your use of literature and text in your writing, because not only are you thinking about children and the skills and strategies and types of text that you're wanting them to engage in, you're really being mindful about and purposeful about choosing texts that you want to use as models in your writing. So your grid is really quite a complex, might look like a 6 weeks by 5 day grid, but you've got a lot of, so I want you to kind of describe, and I think there will be access to your planning grids. So people in the show notes will be able to link to those so people can see what it is that it looks like. And it's detailed and yet it's fluid and really, really clear about where it is that you're going, very focused around where it is that you're heading with things. So you've got one in front of you, Dee, and Danielle, that you could talk to, and we could put that into the show notes so that people could have that in front of them as they.
Which one you got?
Which one do you want?
Which one do you want? Do whichever one you fancy.
Not poetry.
Not poetry. Go text innovation. We've just we've come up with that into narrative, so that works well.
Actually, can I also, whilst you're getting ready with that, just talk about that you actually have a year-long map that guides you into. So this is also part of the planning. This isn't just coming from the wild blue yonder, although that's what I love too, is that you let the wild blue yonder also come into your planning. It's not so fixed and so stilted and so same. It's anything but that, in fact, anything but that. So even though it sort of sounds like, talk through a 6-week or 5-week plan, and this one you've chosen is a unit on, what did you say, innovation?
Text innovation, where we looked at Philip Bunting's text, The World's Most Bizarre Creatures, When Animals Collide. That's what we called it. But we looked at Bunting's books and got the kids to innovate in his style, but just with the purpose that we wanted and the animals that we got the kids to create. Yeah.
And with student choice in there too, isn't there? Like lots of student choice about, okay, it's about animals, but okay, which animal, where are they coming from, where it's, there's lots of student agency, in this work that you're doing. So week 1, just talk about actually what is there an overriding something that comes with the unit? Title, I guess. Innovation. Text innovation.
We call this one When Animals Collide, The World's Most Bizarre Creatures, because we had the kids take two hopefully completely different animals and smash them together to create some new creature.
Right, so you've actually got a real hook for students just by what you name this unit. It's really like that provocation, isn't it, of what's this going to be about? I bet your children are always asking, what's next, what are we doing next?
Hopefully
I'm sure so great title to it, and really gives an open door to your students, doesn't it, to say, wow, here we are, we're into this adventure in this space. So what kind of detail do you then put into your planning?
We normally start with a 2 weeks front loading through reading. So we will explore the text that we're looking at, have a look at its layout, its set out, the language it uses, the style it uses, the imaging, get them really into it through reading and through the book to start with before we hit the 5-week writing. So all our units run with that, with 2 weeks in front of the writing through our reading workshops. So we kind of immerse them into the book first before asking them to write.
Yeah. So really that immersion in reading like a writer.
Yes.
So really letting them do the noticing around those different aspects that you're talking about. As you said, like layout and really text features.
Yeah, it's that familiarisation for them so that they know where they're heading.
Yeah. So do you find that 2 weeks, I think initially you probably built that 2 weeks into the 5? Or did you always have it sitting outside?
We've normally had it sitting outside. We've probably been more purposeful and intentional with the lessons that we do. Possibly maybe only a week in front earlier on.
Yeah, yes. I think we were in front earlier on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you find that fits really actually quite neatly in the lead up? There's 2 weeks where another unit is finishing off, where the reading really takes a reading like a writer focus. Yes?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful.
It gives them a purpose. It gets them inspired to write.
Yeah. So each day for those 2 weeks, the reading is really the 2 weeks before the unit. You're in your reading workshop. That's the work that students are really engaging in their strategy lessons with you.
Yep.
Yes. Correct.
All right. So once you hit the 5-week unit, then you still actually link your reading workshop and your writing workshop.
Yeah. We do.
100%, yeah.
Yes, yeah. All right.
I think it has
away.
to be. I think it has to be linked. Otherwise, again, they lose that purpose, and they need that reminder because we've had that 2 weeks. Sometimes those 2 weeks fall over holidays, so we'll have 2 weeks and then school holidays and then back into the next unit. It does give them that foundation to build on already.
Yeah, I think as we hit the writing, so we go into the week 1 of the writing, our reading lessons get more pinpoint to exactly what we need for writing.
Right. So less maybe less investigation and noticing of text, and now more in the reading. What kinds of things would you get them to focus on? How particular aspects of the text work?
Yeah, the skills that they're going to need to construct their own. So, as you say, looking at it as looking at text as a reader, looking at then as a writer, how do these features of these texts fit in together so that when you go into writing it, you have already some of that skill to be able to create those things.
Yeah. So you plan those things quite intentionally then, don't you?
Yep.
So in that plan, can you give us some examples of what kinds of strategy lessons or mini lessons you might do during that, those first couple of weeks of a unit?
Yeah, for the reading in the first week of the unit, we go in with taking a bit of a sidestep away from the text that we're innovating and looking more at non-fiction texts and selecting sources, reading, highlighting, taking notes. So all those skills they're going to need to collect their information to be able to write their piece.
Yes, because they're doing an innovation, they still have to research. So now they're in research mode. So they're reading and using, summarising, collecting information, main idea, those sorts of things.
Assessing viability of sources and reliability of sources as well.
Yes, yeah. All those year 5, 6 things that and that's the thing I just want to really emphasise too, is you hold very strongly to the curriculum and the expectations of the curriculum, and you don't exclude children who might not be there. Everybody's in with this. Everybody gets access to everything off the curriculum so that they can give it their best go at that. And I think that's something that really sets your work apart, is that we don't say, they're operating at a different year level in that area. Actually, to be able to engage at their year level, they need access to that teaching and to that opportunity to try it. And that's what you step back and you model and you let children engage in it. Right, so first week might be in that unit lots of research things.
Yeah, and note-taking and source evaluation.
Yeah. So that's in the reading side of things, or does that also then spill into the writing?
It spills into the writing as well. We start the writing with a cold task. So that is to look at them reading a piece of informational text, highlighting, taking notes and writing a 1-paragraph summary. So that's what we use to then redirect our planning for the term. If there's things that our class in particular is weak on, we will make sure that we've got those structured mini lessons throughout. So at that point is where we go and look at our plan and what needs tweaking.
Right, so that's week 1, or first day is usually the cold task.
Yep.
Fantastic. So all that immersion leading up to it, and then in that space, let's see where we are, what we're doing, which gives them the opportunity, of course, to bring a little bit of what's already been brought to them through the mentor text into seeing them in, it's kind of giving them a head start.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And that cold task gives us our baseline for every other lesson that we need to teach.
Yeah. Are you ever surprised by, or have you found over time that baselines seem to have are children more confident in no? Have they? No?
Every year is a new year and a new challenge.
Yeah. I guess with a cohort throughout the year, yes, it does change because they get used to the process. But yeah, definitely cohort to cohort is different.
Yes. And they are coming, at the end of a year to a new year that we have just finished teaching, where they were really at the end of that, not at the beginning as this next cohort is. Yeah. But I like that you acknowledge that there is that across a year, you have such a good solid routine, and you mentioned that right at the beginning about the importance of the routines, that students know beginning of a unit they're going to do a cold task, and that's them showcasing.
Yeah, it's really important to have those routines and those expectations, because at the end of it, we don't want the kids surprised by something that they have to do. They need to know that this is everything in front of them. We're really transparent in what we do, how we assess, how we deal with the kids, how we edit, everything. So there are no surprises.
Yes, yeah. And you make that so clear to them up front, over and over again, throughout each unit. Okay, so week 1, we've talked about week 2. What kinds of things happen in week 2 in this unit, as an example?
Well, with reading, we kind of head back in towards our mentor text. So we start looking at illustrations. As part of this unit, the kids have to select 2 animals and use AI imaging to mash them together. So we go back into the book and look at the way the illustrations are presented, and look at the labels they have on there, because that's got a bit of the humour and witty play on it. So how students can go about bringing that wit to it. And then we look at the craft, basically, of the writing through reading. And then writing heads on into labelling their animal and the note-taking side of stuff in preparation to write a paragraph.
And that's a week?
Yep. Yes.
That's incredible, isn't it? I'm just sitting here with a smile all over my face. All of that, there are a lot of joyful things about writing, aren't they? From different angles. Yeah. You've done some craft, you've done some, summary, you've done some, how is the text working so I can create it? So text organisation and features again. So you're really you cover so many aspects by bringing them together.
Yeah, and that we've found is the best way to do it. To compartmentalise everything and teach them in isolation, it doesn't work. You have to have everything linked in. You have to have your reading, your vocab, your word work, your writing, all linked in together, so that the kids have the opportunity to show what they can do and to apply what you've been teaching them.
Yeah. That's that real key piece, isn't it? That you really get to see transfer of what you're teaching. Because in most instances, because of your great strategy mini lessons, they're actually getting to apply it immediately.
Yep.
So whether it's to a paragraph or whether it's to, and you build over time, the kinds of things that they are bringing together. All right, what might week 3 look like?
So week 3 is leading into our text analysis of the analysis of the text features. And in that stage, we have also got a reading response. We like to throw some reading response tasks in for their reading journal.
Yes.
So in this instance, we give them a page from a Bunting book and we ask them to explain the features and the purpose of the features on that page. We head into a compare and contrast a hybrid text with a factual text to understand that there are differences in the structure and the purpose, the language used. We model that the comparison ourselves, and then get our kids to do a Venn diagram to compare and contrast. And again, that goes for a couple of days. Writing-wise, at that stage, we're looking at how they name their creatures, and they need a name, a scientific name, and then their ridiculous name. They get into writing their paragraphs, and then we start looking at what is the purpose of the paragraph, how is the paragraph structured. They are given time to complete it. They need to do some editing and some revising. And then we do, in our writing, we actually break down what editing and revising they're doing, so we give them a focus for it. And then I think our last lesson, that one, is that we focus on the language. Have you used the appropriate language for purpose and audience? So they'll go in and they'll edit their language choices. And at that stage, throughout all of this, we're also running our masterclasses. So for our students who need that little bit of extra support and maybe aren't picking up what we're putting down, they come and sit with us, and we work more in a sort of a small group or one-on-one area with them, so that they can get hold of what we are actually doing. And that's when we find that our emerging writers might tend to come to us, and even our stronger writers who are struggling a bit will come and sit down with us and have those discussions and get that little bit of extra learning that they need to produce the piece that we expect them to produce.
And all through this, they're always working with their own writing.
Yes.
Yes. Like this thread is just coming through so strongly. And you've just talked about a week again, haven't you?
Yeah.
Like, this is high intensity. When it's that connected, how much you can, like, if they were all separate lessons, on, all those different aspects that were just being done outside of writing that they were doing, it would just take, that wouldn't be a week's worth. That's like a year's worth.
Yeah.
But as soon as you bring it together like that, everything is always coming back to crafting and recrafting what they're doing. So it isn't,
very much.
Yeah. That's going to come up in one of our other one of the other pillars, isn't it? That recrafting
Yes, it is.
idea. Yes. Yeah. So everyone can look forward to that, because that's a big part of this. In fact, the other pillars are really going to pull apart, they're going to build on, all of these pieces that we're talking about. But I think this idea of just getting a picture of what a unit, all the elements that you are bringing into it, and this is repeated over and over again, the linking, and the clear focus. So week 4, what happens week 4?
In week 4, our reading is usually no longer linked to the writing. That's when we start our front-end loading for the next unit. So during this time with this particular unit, we started looking at narrative and looking at character and setting to front-end load for the next writing unit. So the writing continues on through the editing and revising process. Something that we didn't mention as well, on our plan, we actually have marked, our kids submit a draft, they submit their plan, they submit things all the way along. So we're not getting all the way to the end and going, oh, what are we going to do about this? We are with them every step of the way and ask for them to submit on particular dates so we can hold them to the timeline. And if we notice they're off that timeline, you can intervene and help.
Yes, yeah. Yes, that's a really powerful point, which I think will come up in one of your other pillars as well. But you're very much, this linking that we're talking about, this reading, the writing, when they're practicing what you've been modelling, they're actually doing that as part of this piece of writing that they're developing. So nobody really gets left behind. Nobody's there going, oh, well, I didn't do that, and I've had 17 days to do it and I didn't do it.
Oh, to be fair, we do have a few of those. But I'm not going to lie, we do have a few of those.
We just drag them along instead.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, they might be kicking and screaming, and we might be kicking and screaming, but they are expected to meet up with the timelines that we give them, because And it's something that we picked up from you and Phil is that when we were first started editing our work during the writing process, we were doing all of the editing. And you had said to us one day in a Zoom, why aren't the kids doing it? And I know Dee and I afterwards went, why aren't the kids doing it? Okay. So a lot of that timeline and when things are submitted, it's them going through and editing, and we do the big ones at the end just to make sure that everything is sitting where it is. We, as Dee said, by doing all of that, we actually go through, and before they get so deep in this that they can't get themselves out, we are going through and just looking at what they've got. Does it fit with what we need? Does it fit the purpose? And on more than one occasion, we have we've crucified
ruthless,
crucified work, and we have pulled kids aside and said, sorry, that's not going to cut it. This is what you needed to have. And we've sat down with them, we conference with them and get them back on track.
Yeah.
We even, in a couple of cases, have given the child the option, because what they were doing wasn't working, to completely pull a pin and start again with support, which multiple have opted to start again because it was too much work to fix.
Yes, yeah. And what difference does that make when they're given the option, to save themselves, basically, isn't it? Rather than if it's too hard to do, like how good is that to have that agency to say, okay, I can't resurrect this.
Yeah. And to link that back to our planning, that's why we plan as extensively as we do, and we map out exactly where things are due, because we can say, okay, you've got 2 days, you can either continue with this and, I don't know, maybe salvage it, or 2 days with support to get that back on track by doing something completely different. It's really important that you work those in for yourselves, because you, as a teacher, cannot possibly sit down and go through 28 different pieces of work that need lots of work to fix in a 2-day period.
No. Excellent. So that's week 4. We're up to week 5, are we? Did we finish week 4?
Yeah, not particularly. Week 4 continues on with editing and revising. We look at cohesion and linking back to what their original purpose was, getting the kids to really look at, have I fulfilled the purpose that I set out to do? And then by the end of that week, their writing piece is due, because this one comes with the use of Canva and putting it onto a page to present as part of a book.
Oh, yes, which is another feature of things that you do. But, yes, so now you're always giving good time to this because they've created this creature. They're AI, they're mashing this image. So, all elements of writing, not just the text, but it's this putting together of everything so it is publish worthy.
Yep.
Then comes into play. So then week 5?
Well, week 5, Dee usually creates a template. We were using Publisher while that was still available. We've gone to Canva, create a template for the kids to use to drop their information in, and then we also sit with them, and we've pretty much got to teach them how to use Canva and how to use keywords to get the picture of their animals that they need.
Yes, yes.
Which can be a fun time in itself as well. So they've got to actually look back on what they've already written and pull the keywords out of that to make sure that what their text says is matched by the illustration that they construct, and that the labels and the name that they create as well.
So that's all week 5. And then so how does that, or is this a 6-week unit or a 5?
No, it's
That's
5.
5, yeah.
5, right. And so the publishing, so the putting together of things happens in that week.
Yep.
And then in this instance, as you said, this is made as a class book.
Yes, yep.
Each child has submitted their, I don't know, you might have said that it was when I was being strangled by the cord coming across here that I think I lost focus. Did you talk about the final product?
No, like
No,
each
we didn't.
child has to submit their page, and we put it together in a book. It has its final edit to make sure that the punctuation, there's no spelling errors, that everything makes sense. And yeah, it's constructed into a book, and we make two copies of it. One goes into our class library, and then one goes into the school library.
Fantastic. Now, editing. Is editing going to come up in another session?
Yes, we talked about that. I was going to say that's in our Independence in Learning section.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
because
where we've got
that work you've done around editing is huge. So, yes, we want to be able to talk about that and bring that into it. So I think in the show notes for this one, we definitely, these samples, great to have talked through one of these and, you've got some other, planners that you've,
I think we've got 2 to upload. We've got...
we've got 2 more.
We've got 3 of them in. We've got the autobiography, the poetry and the text innovation. There's 2 more to go in.
Wow. So just quickly, so across a year, the map really covers your, so a text innovation, narrative, poetry.
Yeah.
And we are just going to talk about how, just briefly, just how big you go with the poetry. Incredibly big. Year 5, 6s writing ballads. Year 5, 6s.
I guess Dee wants me to talk about that one. We do go big, and I think when we first started working with you and Phil, I think Dee, you were on long service leave at that point, and I was in with kids.
Oh, you were we gave you free rein, did we?
And that's when you got me on to making sure that the school library had enough poetry texts, and we had looked in the year 5, 6 class, because we were split at that time. We started studying Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, and we broke that down bit by bit. So poetry is not an area that we slack on. We go hammer and tong. And last year, yes, I thought it was a great idea to do Australian ballads. However, when we got to teaching it, it ended up being far more complicated than I'd hoped it would be. We got there though.
You absolutely got there. Yeah.
It was a very big learning curve for us.
Yeah.
Well, for me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was making Dee do all the stuff, so it was my...
Yeah. You had to think through it, and then
I did,
Dee had to deliver. Yeah.
But we've always gone quite big on poetry. A couple of years ago, we had Sally Murphy come in and talk to our kids, and so as part of our poetry that year, we wrote a sequel to her novel Worse Things. As a whole class, so that was quite fun. We've done also poetry anthologies where kids have written copies of every sorts of poems that we've studied, but last year we took the idea that we would AI some images and we stuck them behind the text, and our kids wrote Australian ballads, which we sent you a copy of the book. It was Under the Southern Skies, and from the trouble that we had doing it and delivering it, it ended up being a really beautiful book.
An incredible book. Very, and I have to apologise here because I keep referencing you as 5, 6 class when in fact you are just a year 6 class.
Yeah, we are now.
Yeah. It was 5, 6 to begin with. I'm
yes,
sorry.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Yes. No, that book of ballads. It is hard. It is a hard concept, but your children, you got them there. You got them into something, and I think we need to, if we can have, some examples of those in the show notes, be beautiful. It's really difficult to understand that it's year 6s writing those, not because they have been over scaffolded and so therefore, they've just, it's not because of that. It's their voices are really clear in those ballads, in those forms, and also because you got them to write about things. Now, did they choose what they wrote about?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So it really shows how important student agency and choice is in being a successful writer.
And when you look at kids like Riley is one of our students who we interviewed that you've got copies of, dyslexic ADHD student who produces a piece of work that is really quite meaningful and emotional, because it was something that he was interested in. To see a kid like Riley go from where he started off to where he ended up was a great moment to see that he could have that success. And even he said afterwards in a letter to us at the end of the year, I really want you to know that I didn't realise I could write like this. I didn't realise that I was this good, that I was this creative, because I've never done it before and nobody's ever had that trust in me to do that before.
Yeah, yeah. And that's something that comes through so strongly in the work that you do, in the planning that you do, is you are enabling every child to see themselves as a writer, and not just a blah blah writer, but to actually see themselves as a true creative, as someone who has voice and choice and can try things out. And sometimes they go belly up, or I don't, stick to the, the deadlines, and, it doesn't get to where I got it to, but you don't abandon them there. That's okay, with some support, let's work on that. With some scaffolding, let's work on that. Let's get it to where, and that's the other thing, is you let them have ownership about where can we get this to.
I think that idea of the masterclass shows that you're giving every kid an equal opportunity to advance, no matter what level they are.
Yes.
I think that's a great way of describing it, a masterclass, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And that it isn't just, okay, this group need to come with me.
Yeah. It's a nice term to use rather than, here's the kids that need help. Yeah. And a masterclass gives them that confidence of we think you can do it, but here's a little bit extra help.
Yes, yes. And I think I just need a little bit of extra help in that, so can I join?
Yeah. They have freedom to come and go, even if we haven't asked them to be there. They're always free to come and join that masterclass if they feel it's helpful.
That's a great pedagogy.
Isn't it? Yeah. And real agency, that's the power for children to be making the decision about, and to find what's within them. That for Riley to say, never knew that I could be creative like that.
Yeah.
Like that's such a turning point for a teacher and a child, quite honestly, to go, okay, I have set things up, I have planned, totally about intentional planning though, and listening. And I think you said earlier on, both of you, that without the planning, you just can't get to the big things, that, they become one-offs, disconnected, without that big flow of planning that you do. There were just a couple of things. Why, I think we've probably talked about it enough, but, why does that intentional planning work so well?
I think the students have a very clear and defined purpose. We also have another document that goes to our kids that go with our planning, and that's called their critical features. So they actually have their 5 weeks of their unit, as far as writing is concerned, mapped out with things highlighted when they're due to be submitted. And we have the stuff available to them in the classroom.
So it's not just in your head.
No, they get it in black and white.
Yeah. It's in their hands. Amazing. And just the question, we've heard what Riley says. What other things, and, we've got 4 more pillars to talk about yet, but I'm going to ask you each time, so because of that planning and because of, say, something like the critical features, what do students say about having those tools or having masterclasses or, the things that you offer them? What kinds of things do you hear them say?
Well, look, something from this year that struck me is we were working with a student a couple of days ago on her narrative, and we said to her, look, it's not working. The things in here are implausible, and we've walked her through the steps of creating something that would work, and she just looked at us at the end of it and said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And Dee and I said to her, well, have you never sat down with someone and had those conversations? She said, no one's ever really sort of sat down and walked me through, how do I do this? Okay, this is not great. How do I fix it? It's just sort of been, you're pretty good at doing this. Go ahead and fix it. And she said to have had that guidance has made all the difference. So I think they are appreciative of it, and they do realise that we work just as hard as they do to get them to where they need to be.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and they must see, the fact that you give them the tools, so what's the sheet called? The critical features?
The critical features, yeah.
The critical features. What a great name. Like we all look for a map of what's possible, and that that it's within our power to get us there. And clearly we can get there if a teacher has thought through all of those things for us to achieve that and to think big.
And the literature as a guide as well.
And the literature.
Yep.
You've used such great literature. You're always on the lookout for great literature. So that's...
I think the literature too is as much to amuse us as it is to educate the kids, because we're always going, okay, that worked really well, but we've already used that for a year. Is there something else we can use that fits more appropriately? Because our plans do get tweaked year by year because of the different kids we have coming through. We're then looking at, do we want to do the same book again, or do we want to do something slightly different?
We quite often select our books too. We are lucky enough to get visiting authors, usually at least once a year, and quite often we'll go off the back of one of those if we've had a particular author in that's got something that's marketed at our kids. We've turned a unit around pretty quickly after having an author previously.
Yeah, that was a Mark Greenwood one.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And we compiled the book and then sent it to Mark Greenwood, and he took the time to read it and then reply to us saying what a fantastic book it was. He loved it, and it was really nice to see how his visit had actually impacted on the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a great thing for an author.
Yes, because they don't get a lot of response. You'd think, they'd be getting bagfuls of letters and to actually see how it impacts children as writers and thinkers, to be able to, to the impact that has on them as creatives. It's nice to know that it's not just the messages that they've been writing about, but how it excites children to be able to innovate. What they're essentially doing a lot of the time, you're really teaching them, how to be a writer by following good writers. And as Frank Smith always said, we learn from the company we keep. Yeah. And I love that you'll...
Yes,
sorry, we all want to talk now.
Yeah. We have been really lucky in that... particularly for our sixes, we've had some great authors. One of my former students is a self-published author, so when we were doing fantasy, we were able to Zoom with her in the UK. And one that really made me smile was we got Gary Crew, and we had a class of kids, and we did a Zoom with Gary Crew. And he was smitten by the fact that we'd gone through all of his picture books and we'd read his novels, and the kids could talk about it not only as a reader but as a writer. to the point where Mark Greenwood, when he arrived, said, "What do you mean you've spoken to Gary Crew? He doesn't really do those sorts of things with schools anymore." And we're like, "Oh, he invited us back for a second go." So,
Gary Crew would have loved that.
Yes, yeah. And we have to remember here too, we're talking about a small school.
yes.
We're not talking about a school with money to burn for all
No.
sorts of things.
No.
You have created experiences for your students, such rich experiences, bringing writers to them,
Yeah,
whether
we are.
that's via Zoom, by
And we're very
books.
lucky because our P&C have donated money to actually bring authors and organised authors to come to us,
Yes.
because they understand how important that link between speaking with professionals, published people, and people who are, excelling in their area, how that impacts our kids. So
Yeah.
We haven't talked about that Collie is in a regional area, quite away from the capital city of Perth.
A couple of hours.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's kind of it's a mining. and-
coal mining town. Yep.
Yeah, just to give people context, there'll be
Yeah.
people interested from all different places in the world that are also in regional areas, and just to know that they can do this sort of thing as well.
Yeah, we are not in an area that has money to burn on things. We are, as you say, small. Our P&C does a lot for us. We rely on people that we know ourselves to help us out in terms of things like the authors and who knows who to get people in, and that push has been for literacy improvement and Collie has been quite prominent the last few years, so that's really good.
Fantastic.
And even your mention of the classroom library before, your classroom library is to die for.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
something we spend a lot of time and effort on. A great example of our classroom library was we have a new student in our class this year who hasn't seen classroom library, and this morning he turned to Danielle and he's like, "Can I make one of those books? Because all our student-made books are in our classroom library." And he's been looking through them, and he is someone that has challenges with writing, but just from being in our library and seeing what other kids have made, it's inspired him to want to be a part of it.
Wow.
It is tremendous, the honouring you do of children. So something like that. Put what we publish, it belongs in a classroom library, belongs in school library. They are, yes.
Well, it's valuing the child, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, the
Yeah.
writing,
Yeah.
the writing is a part of them, and you're valuing a part of them through their writing.
Yeah, and if we've asked them to put the effort in to do something like that,
Yeah.
the very
Yes.
least we could do is have it on display for other people to see.
And the effort you also put in that they absolutely get to see, because your final edit of a work is important
Yeah.
and is, in primary school, in foundation to 6, a teacher is always the final editor. Even though they're doing, and we'll talk about that in, one of the other pillars, the editing you get them to do towards independence, it still needs an adult as the final. And, you dedicate time to doing that to enable students to be at a place where they can see their work belongs in everyone's hands, not just, not just in their folder or the bottom of their tray, because that's all that happened with it. All your things have a big life, as your students have a big writing, reading life. And I'm just going to say I also love just how you said before about, you'll choose new mentor texts year after year. And it's like, you use a text and then you go,
Next.
There's more things we can do. And I
Yeah.
love the thrill that you get from the possibility of text. And when you come across it and you go, can you imagine what we could do with this? And maybe ballads was a big thing And I will, still say it was a big thing, but you did it. So seeing potential in text and your students understanding that you are therefore seeing potential in them, that's mighty. You do have big expectations and you hold high expectations. That's how you started off this podcast, saying you hold high expectations. And your students know that, and they know that you're going to help them get higher than they ever knew they could get. So purposeful planning is just such... Don't you get excited by it, Phil? Like that, listening to that.
Yes, Sharon. No, I do. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But we might wind up now.
Well, yes. Oh, my gosh. Yes.
So I'm going to do my little spiel.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today with our 5 pillars of effective writing instruction, part 1, and that is purposeful planning. We've loved to see that so many of you have subscribed to our episodes from all corners of the world. The Teacher's Toolkit podcast is all about giving you an insider's guide to top teaching ideas, tools and techniques in literacy teaching and learning. And thank you, Dee and Danielle and Sharon, and we look forward to you guys being in our next podcast.
Yes. Pillar 2. Here we come.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, and bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.